Sometimes when I look at kids nowadays and they talk about anxiety or depression or um, social pressures, um, like most people, my heart goes out to them. Like, I get it, I understand it, kind of. But as an adult, sometimes you can forget the things that you went through as a teen, as a kid. Um, and something struck me the other day. I read an article on CBC talking about kids dealing with the anxiety of and the stresses of school life, and friends, and etc. And I caught myself thinking, oh, grow up. I caught myself in that headspace, like, oh, grow up, you'll be fine. And then I then stopped for a second, and I realized, wait a second, that's 47-year-old Devin saying that. What would what was younger Devin like? Let's think about that for a minute. And if I'm going to be completely honest, I didn't know what anxiety meant back in those days. I didn't know what depression meant back in those days. I didn't know what social awkwardness meant back in those days. They're things that we take for granted now, but back in the 80s, though they weren't buzzwords. Nobody really knew them. And I don't know if I had anxiety. I don't know if I had depression. I don't know if I had social awkwardness. I would say I probably did for all three. But what I can say is that as a kid, we moved from Chicago to Cape Breton when I was very, very little. And for me, I felt like I was an outsider. My life growing up, I felt I was shy for the most part. As a younger kid, not as much, and as I got older, I got more shy. And I started to keenly feel being different, not being like everybody else, not being what I would have considered normal. And the best way to put it is I was very underconfident in myself. I wasn't happy with myself. I used to I used to say something when I was younger, which is, I've never said this before. I used to say that if God created everybody, God created me to laugh at with his friends, because I couldn't do anything right. My brother and sister did better in school than I did. I didn't have an easy time in school. Things didn't necessarily come easily to me, in my mind, at least. Didn't feel like I had very many friends. Didn't feel like people liked me very much. Felt like an outsider a lot. Felt like girls didn't like me. Felt like guys didn't like me. Didn't know what to say in situations. And as a kid moving into a teen, those were the feelings I had, and it made me feel pretty terrible about myself a lot. What is interesting about that is that's something that, the things that you believe as a teen or as a kid, or sometimes even as an adult, aren't necessarily true. You know what I mean? They're your perspective. And I hate the term speaking my truth. Like, oh, so-and-so speaking their truth, or her truth, his truth. I don't like that. There is the truth, as far as I'm concerned. There's the truth. Your truth is some, version of the truth that you have doctored to fit a narrative that you like. In my mind, that's how I've always felt with that term. I hate the term. What's funny is, though, now I look back on being a kid and being a teen, maybe even being a young adult, and I realized I was functioning under a version of the truth. my version of the truth, which, what's fun, in retrospect, not true. If you ask people I went to school with, if you ask people who are friends of mine, they would definitely have not said, he's an outsider, nobody likes him, nobody wants to hang out with him, he's a weirdo. That's not what it was. And the reason I know this is because I've spent time with friends from high school, people I know from high school, went to my 20-year reunion. And I realized at that 20-year reunion, you know what? I created a narrative in there. I created a narrative of who I was and what I was like. It wasn't even necessarily true. Like the narrative of saying that people didn't like me, or I was weird or different, or I wasn't from there, so I wasn't part of the group and nobody wanted me around. That wasn't a thing. The fact that I thought, everything in my life was hard. That's not a thing either. That in reality didn't happen. Saying, I was always bad at things, or that nothing ever worked out for me, which are things I believed as a kid and as a teen. That's not true either. In reality, a lot of things came very easily to me. From schoolwork. Yes, I didn't get the marks, that my brother and sister got, but I didn't get bad marks. I graduated in the top 10 in my class. You can't complain about that. So what's interesting is when I look back on my life now as an adult, and I see, and I think about what I thought I was and what I became, it's just very interesting because I think, I probably had anxiety. I probably had some depression. I definitely had some social awkwardness. But all of it was created in here. Every bit of it was created in my freaking head. People didn't treat me badly. I had friends. People were not rude to me. People didn't dislike me. I created all that stuff. So it's ironic now when I look at people teens and stuff talking about, feeling social anxiety, feeling bad, whatever. I get it. I did it. But what I always want to say to my kids is that stuff you grow out of over time. It gets better. And I understand for some people it doesn't. I get that, But for a lot of us, it gets better. You have that epiphany as you grow older and say, wait a second, this is not the way, what I thought I was is not who I was. I always, when I was a kid and I was younger, we go back to Chicago and visit my dad's friends. And I always felt like, my dad's friends kind of had it all together. They had nice houses, and they were families. They seemed like they were, they would have been in their late 40s. Like they had it all figured out. They're confident. And I always in my mind had this thought process that, when I was 40, my 40s and 50s, or late 40s into my 50s and 60s, that's who I'd be. I'd be the guy that was confident and had done well financially and, had a beautiful family and, had it all figured out. And I don't know if I worked toward that necessarily, but it was something that was in my head my whole life. It was always that, like my dad's friends or, people you see on, in a movie or whatever that were in their late 40s, early 50s that, I don't know, just seemed like they had it all figured out. They're fit, they're healthy, they had that stuff figured out. And what's ironic now is I look at myself now and who I am and how I am as a person. I think that stuff stuck in my head, that thought process when I saw my dad's friends and I saw these people that I thought, oh, that's it. I want to be like that. I feel like I'm working toward that. You know what I mean? I feel like in my life, that's what I have worked toward this entire time, which is interesting because you realize all the stuff you've been doing in your life sometimes you have a goal and you don't even know you have a goal. And sometimes you realize what you thought you wanted, you can become it sort of almost by mistake. And I'm not saying I have it all figured out. I don't. But I also realize I'm a heck of a lot closer to having things figured out than I was before. And I definitely have realized what you think you want to be and what you create in your mind is what you will become. If you think about it and you concentrate on it and you work on it, you will be there. You will become that. Which is, it's really amazing if you think about it. All that time I thought I was one person. And I wasn't that person. And nobody else thought I was that person. And now, thinking about my dad's friends and that character of being, fit, successful, beautiful family, have it all figured out in your late 40s into your 50s. That's something I wanted to go there my whole life. Because I thought I was here, but I wasn't even there. I wasn't this disliked person. So it's interesting when you really sit back and think about it. Who you are inside changes. Who you want to become, sometimes that sticks around. But your perception, your truth, for lack of a better term, your truth isn't usually the truth. It's what you've created here. And whatever you want to create in your head, you can create. It can happen. It happens. You just can't concentrate on the wrong shit. If you spend your time concentrating on the wrong shit, bad things happen. And you could spend years or an entire life thinking you're one thing when no one else thinks that.